On June 4th, 1978, a group of motorcyclists pulled up to an abandoned trailer deep in the mountains of Northern California. They weren't looking for anything. They were just stretching their legs on a long ride. But when they cracked open that trailer door, the smell hit them like a wall. Inside, wrapped in 8 blankets on a bare mattress, was the body of a man who had been dead for nearly 13 weeks. His feet were black with frostbite and gangrene. He'd lost half his body weight. His beard had grown wild, a clock counting the weeks he'd been lying there, slowly starving to death. But here's the thing that makes this case one of the most disturbing mysteries in American history. Surrounding his body, in plain sight, were boxes of food, enough to last a year. There were matches, kindling, and firewood. There was a full propane tank outside that could have heated the entire trailer for months. He used none of it. He just lay there and died. And he wasn't alone up in those mountains. There were 4 others, 5 best friends, known as the Yuba City Five, who vanished after a basketball game on a cold February night and drove 70 miles in the completely wrong direction into a frozen wilderness for reasons that nobody has ever been able to explain. This is their story. And I gotta warn you, there are no good answers at the end of this one. If this is your first time here, welcome to Whispers and Warnings. This is where we dig into the cases that don't add up. Real stories, real people, real questions that nobody's been able to answer. We drop new episodes every Tuesday and Friday at 7 p.m. If that's your thing, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next week. All right, let's get into it. To understand why this case hurts as much as it confuses, you got to understand who these guys were. The Yuba City Five. 5 best friends who did everything together in Yuba City, California. They all had either mild intellectual disabilities or mental health conditions, but every single one of them was high-functioning, independent, and full of life. Let me introduce you to each of them, because they deserve that. Jack Hewitt was the youngest, just 24. Jack was quiet. He got uncomfortable around strangers and didn't do well in social situations. But when he was with his 4 best friends, totally different person. He'd crack jokes, laugh from his gut, light up a room. He just needed to feel safe first. And with these guys, he did. Ted Weir was the oldest, 32. Ted was like the big brother of the group. He especially looked after Jack. If Jack was too anxious to make a phone call, like calling a stranger or scheduling an appointment, Ted would pick up the phone and do it for him. No questions asked. That's just who Ted was. Bill Sterling was 29, deeply religious, quiet in his own way. He spent a lot of his free time at the library reading Christian literature. Gentle soul, kept to himself outside the group. Jack Madruga was 30. He was an Army veteran, though he'd been discharged after a medical evaluation found his IQ fell below the military's threshold. But Jack didn't let that define him. What defined Jack was his car, a 1969 Mercury Montego, white and turquoise. And man, he loved that car. Treated it like a member of the family. He was the only one of the 5 with a driver's license, and he wore that responsibility with pride. He was the group's designated driver, and he wouldn't have it any other way. And then there was Gary Mathias, 25. also an Army vet. Gary had been discharged too, but for a different reason. During his time in service, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. When Gary first came home to Yuba City, it was rough. He was struggling. His family was struggling. Nobody had figured out the right way to manage his condition yet. But eventually, his doctors found the right combination of medications, and Gary stabilized fully. He was holding down a part-time job working with his stepfather's gardening business. He was present, he was sharp. He was, by all accounts, doing really, really well. Gary was the unofficial leader of the group, the one who made plans, the one who got everyone hyped. And what brought all 5 of them together, the thing that made them inseparable, was basketball. When these guys got together, they were either playing basketball, watching basketball, or talking about basketball. They were all enrolled in a vocational rehab program called the Gateway Program. And that program had a basketball team. The Yuba City Five didn't just play on that team, they lived for it. And in February of 1978, their team qualified for a regional tournament. The prize for winning? A free trip to Los Angeles. For these 5 guys, that might as well have been the NBA Finals. The tournament was scheduled for February 25th, 1978. But the night before, February 24th, their favorite college team, UC Davis, was playing a game in Chico, California, just 50 miles away. The plan was simple. Drive out to Chico, watch the game, cheer on their team, then drive straight home, get a good night's sleep, and wake up ready to dominate their own tournament. So they loaded up in Jack Madruga's beloved Montego and headed for Chico. They had no idea they were about to drive into the single most baffling disappearance in California history. The game was great. UC Davis won. The boys were fired up. Multiple witnesses confirmed seeing the Yuba City Five at that game. They were there. They were happy. Everything was normal. After the game, they drove a short distance to a small convenience store in Chico. They grabbed sodas, cartons of milk, some snacks for the ride home. The shop owner would later tell investigators that he remembered them clearly because they walked in right around 10 p.m., right when he was trying to close up. 5 guys coming in and buying a bunch of stuff when you're ready to lock the doors? Yeah. He remembered being annoyed. That shop owner was the last person to ever see any of those 5 men alive. That night, some of the boys' parents stayed up waiting and waiting and waiting. The boys didn't come home. The parents started calling each other. "Have you seen my son?" "No." "Is he with you?" "No." Nobody had heard from any of them. Now here's what you need to understand. This wasn't normal. These guys always told their parents where they'd be. Always. And beyond that, they had the biggest day of their lives the next morning. That basketball tournament they'd been obsessing over for weeks. The trip to LA on the line. The idea that they would stay out all night, jeopardize their sleep, jeopardize their shot at that tournament. It was completely, totally, absolutely out of character. By early the next morning, every family had called the police. Something was wrong. The investigation was assigned to Lieutenant Lance Ayers. And here's where it gets personal. Ayers had gone to high school with Ted Weir, the big brother of the group, the oldest of the five. This wasn't just a case for Ayers. This was someone he knew. When the first few hours turned up nothing, Ayers made a critical decision. He expanded the search radius, way beyond where anyone expected these guys to be. And a few days later, that decision paid off. Sort of. They found Jack Madruga's Montego, but it wasn't anywhere near Yuba City, and it wasn't anywhere near Chico. It was 70 miles away, in the completely opposite direction from home. Parked on a remote dirt road in the middle of a mountain forest that none of the families had any connection to whatsoever. 70 miles in the wrong direction. Into the mountains, on a road that leads to absolutely nowhere. And the car itself? That's where it gets really weird. It was covered in snow, but it wasn't stuck. There was no indication that snow had trapped it. There was still a quarter tank of gas, no keys in the ignition, but when police hotwired it, fired right up, ran perfectly. No mechanical issues, no engine problems, nothing wrong with it. They had literally driven to this spot, put the car in park, taken the keys, and walked away into a frozen mountain wilderness at night in the middle of a snowstorm. Inside the car, just some wrappers, empty cans and milk cartons from the convenience store snacks. One window slightly down. That was it. No signs of struggle. No blood. No damage. They just left. Why? The search shifted entirely to the area surrounding the car. For days, search teams combed through the frozen forest. Dogs, helicopters, ground crews. They found nothing. And then, Mother Nature shut them down. A massive snowstorm rolled in, burying everything. The snow was so deep, so relentless that the search had to be abandoned entirely. They'd have to wait until spring, until the snow melted enough to even walk through those woods. Imagine being one of those parents. Your son is somewhere in those mountains, and you have to wait for months while winter buries whatever answers might be out there. During those months, the families did everything they could. They put out rewards, they begged for information. The police fielded thousands of tips, hundreds of unconfirmed sightings. None of it led anywhere. For over 3 months, silence. And then, June 4th, 1978. A group of motorcyclists on a long road trip happened to be riding through those same mountains, about 20 miles from where the Montego had been found. They pulled into a small cul-de-sac to stretch their legs. And that's when they noticed it. Down a small slope, half hidden by overgrowth, an old trailer. It was a forestry service trailer, hadn't been maintained in years. One of the windows was broken out. The place looked completely abandoned. They figured they'd just poke their heads in, see what's inside. Just curiosity, so they walked up to the door, grabbed the handle, and pulled it open. The smell hit them immediately. They slammed the door shut. One of them said, "Mami," and I'm quoting here, "I don't know what's in there, but it smells like death." It was death. It was Ted Weir, the big brother, the the one who looked after Jack Hewitt, the oldest of the group, found lying on a bed inside that trailer, wrapped in 8 blankets. His feet were blackened with frostbite and gangrene. He'd lost approximately 50% of his body weight. The growth of his beard suggested he'd been lying in that exact spot for roughly 13 weeks. 13 weeks. Ted Weir had died from a combination of starvation and exposure to the cold. But here's the part that turns this from a tragedy into an absolute enigma. Inside that trailer, in plain sight, within arm's reach of where Ted was lying, there were boxes of C rations, military-grade survival food, enough to feed a person for over a year. Just pop them open and eat. There were matches, kindling, firewood, paperback books that could have been used as fuel, everything you'd need to build a fire and stay warm. There was extra clothing, heavy cold weather gear, right there on the shelves. And outside, a propane tank, nearly full, connected to the trailer's heating system. All someone had to do was turn it on, and that trailer would have been warm for weeks. None of it was touched. Not a single C ration opened. Not a single match struck. Not a single log placed in a fire. The propane was never turned on. The extra clothes were never worn. Ted Weir starved to death over 13 weeks, surrounded by everything he needed to survive. But it gets worse. Gary Mathias's shoes were inside that trailer. Gary, the Army veteran, the man trained in survival. See, here's the thing. I don't care what branch you serve in. The military teaches you one thing above everything else: how to survive. How to use whatever's in front of you to stay alive, building a fire, rationing food, finding shelter, conserving heat. These aren't advanced skills for someone like Gary. They're basic training, day one stuff. If Gary was in that trailer, and his shoes being there strongly suggests he was, then why didn't he start a fire? Why didn't he open the food? Why didn't he turn on the propane? Why didn't he, at the very least, tell Ted to use the supplies? Something about being in that trailer either prevented them from using those supplies or made them choose not to. And that is the question that has haunted investigators for over 4 decades. The day after Ted's body was found, searchers discovered the remains of Bill Sterling and Jack Madruga approximately 11 miles from where the car had been abandoned. Their remains showed significant animal predation. There wasn't much left. But from what investigators could determine, both had died of hypothermia. 2 days later, Jack Hewitt's remains were found. 2 miles from the trailer, Jack, the youngest, the shy one, the one Ted always looked after, he'd also died of hypothermia. 4 of the 5 had been found. That left Gary Mathias. About a quarter mile from the trailer, searchers found a pile of blankets and a flashlight. It appeared that Gary had been there at some point, maybe resting, maybe trying to figure out what to do. But they don't know for how long, and they don't know where he went after. To this day, Gary Mathias has never been found. No body, no bones, no clothing, nothing. He simply vanished into those mountains. All right, let's lay out what we know, and more importantly, what we don't. 5 men leave a basketball game at approximately 10 p.m. on February 24th, 1978. They stop at a convenience store. They buy snacks. Everything is normal. At some point after leaving that store, instead of driving the 50 miles back home to Yuba City, which was the plan, which was the only plan that made sense the night before their big tournament, they drove 70 miles in the opposite direction, up into a remote mountain forest, on a dirt road, in a snowstorm, at night. They then parked the car, turned it off, removed the keys, closed all the doors, and walked away. Then they hiked on foot approximately 20 miles through a frozen wilderness to reach a forestry trailer they had no way of knowing existed. They entered the trailer. They found food, fire supplies, propane heat, extra clothing, everything they needed to survive, and they used none of it. And over the course of 13 weeks, they died. Now, people have theories. Theory 1, they simply took a wrong turn, got disoriented after the game, maybe missed an exit, ended up on the wrong road and just kept driving until they got stuck. But here's the problem with that. Police analyzed the route. If the boys were lost, if they were confused and driving aimlessly, you'd expect to see them looping around, backtracking, making U-turns, signs of confusion. But the route to where the car was found, it was a straight line, direct, purposeful, like they knew exactly where they were going. That's not consistent with being lost. That's consistent with being driven somewhere, whether by their own decision or someone else's. Theory 2. Gary Mathias was somehow responsible, that maybe his schizophrenia destabilized. Maybe he had an episode. Maybe he influenced the group to drive up there. And maybe that's why he's the only one who was never found, because he's still out there. Or he doesn't want to be found. But even this doesn't fully work. Gary had been stable for years. His medication was working, his family, his doctors. Everyone confirmed he was doing well. And even if he did have an episode, it doesn't explain why nobody in the car said, "Hey, this isn't the way home." It doesn't explain why Jack Madruga, the driver, the only one with a license, went along with it. And it definitely doesn't explain why nobody in that trailer touched the food. Theory 3, and this is the one that people keep coming back to, and is that something happened to them between that convenience store and home. Something that scared them, something that made them flee in the only direction they could. Something that chased them up into those mountains. And whatever that something was, it followed them to that trailer. And it's the reason they wouldn't open those doors, wouldn't light a fire, wouldn't make a sound, because maybe, just maybe, they weren't avoiding the cold. They were hiding from something worse. If you've got a theory about what happened to the Yuba City Five, I genuinely want to hear it. Drop it in the comments. I'll read every single one. New stories drop every Tuesday and Friday at 7 p.m. Until next time, stay safe out there, and maybe keep the lights on tonight.